What if the most dangerous thing you are doing right now is not something the world can see? What if it's invisible, quiet, and happening inside every relationship you are in? What if every time you dropped everything for someone, every time you answered that message at midnight, every time you showed up for people who never once showed up for you, what if all of that was not kindness? What if it was fear dressed up in the costume of love? What if your constant availability is not a strength but a silent signal that says, I don't believe I am worth more than this? What if the moment you stop being so available is the exact moment your real life begins? Stay with me. Because what I am about to share today will not just change how you see your relationships, it will change how you see yourself forever. What if the most exhausting thing in your life right now is not your job, not your schedule, not your responsibilities, but the invisible weight of always being there for people who are never truly there for you? What if that one realization, that single, uncomfortable, honest truth could set you completely free? I want you to sit with that question for a moment, really sit with it, because most of us have been running so fast, saying yes so quickly, answering calls so immediately, that we have never stopped long enough to ask ourselves, why? Why am I always available? And more importantly, for whom? Here is something that will shake you to your core, if you let it. The people who are the most available are rarely the people who feel the most valued. In fact, it is often the opposite. The more available you make yourself, the less people tend to appreciate your presence. Not because people are cruel, though sometimes they are, but because human beings naturally assign value to things that require effort, things that have limits, things that do not come without some form of cost. When you are always there, always ready, always waiting, you have unintentionally told the world that your time, your energy, and your presence cost nothing. And deep down, you know this. You have felt it. You have felt that hollow, sinking feeling after spending hours supporting someone who could not spare 5 minutes for you. You have felt the sting of being the one who always initiates, always checks in, always shows up, while the other person treats your presence like a given, like furniture, like something that will always be there no matter how little they water it. That feeling has a name, and that name is not weakness, that name is not clinginess, that name is not desperation. That name is an unhealed wound, and it is one of the most human wounds that exists on this earth. The wound sounds like this inside your head. If I stop being available, they will leave. If I am not always there, they will find someone else. If I say no, they will think I don't care. If I create distance, I will end up alone. And so you stay. You stay available. You stay reachable. You stay endlessly giving to people who are endlessly taking. Let me tell you something about courage that most people misunderstand. Courage is not the absence of fear. And one of the most courageous acts a human being can perform in this lifetime is to look at someone they love, someone they have given everything to, and say, not with cruelty, not with anger, but with a quiet, grounded, unshakable dignity, I am not available for this anymore. That sentence will terrify you before it liberates you. That is completely normal. That is what courage feels like at the very beginning. It feels exactly like fear. But on the other side of that sentence is a version of your life that you cannot yet imagine, because you have been so busy maintaining availability for others that you have had no time to build a life that feels like home to you. Now let us talk about something that lives underneath all of this, something that most people never want to name out loud because naming it makes it real. That something is shame. Not the shame of doing something wrong, but the shame of believing something wrong about yourself, the quiet, constant whisper that says you are not enough on your own. You need to earn your place in people's lives. You need to be useful, available, responsive, needed, or they will realize you are not worth keeping around. Shame is the engine behind overavailability. Shame is what makes you pick up the phone when every part of your body is exhausted. Shame is what makes you say yes when your soul is screaming no. Shame is what keeps you orbiting around people who have never once considered orbiting around you. And here is the most painful truth about shame. It lies. It lies with absolute confidence. It tells you that your worth is conditional, that love must be earned through sacrifice, that rest is selfishness, that boundaries are cruelty. Every single one of those things is a lie. A beautiful, convincing, devastating lie. Your worth is not something you earn. Your worth is not something you negotiate. Your worth is not something that increases when you are more available or decreases when you say no. Your worth is inherent. It is not up for discussion. It existed before this person needed something from you, and it will exist long after this relationship has ended. The moment you begin to truly believe that, not just intellectually understand it, but feel it in your bones, everything changes. Everything. Now here's where it gets practical, because knowing something and doing something are two very different experiences. You can understand every single word I have just said and still pick up the phone at midnight for someone who drains you. Knowledge alone does not create change. What creates change is a practice, a daily, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes lonely practice of choosing yourself. And choosing yourself starts with something extraordinarily simple. It starts with a pause. Before you respond, before you drop everything, before you rearrange your entire life around someone else's needs, pause. One breath, one honest question: does this person treat my time the way I treat theirs? That question alone, asked consistently, will begin to rewrite every unhealthy pattern you have ever lived inside. Notice what happens inside your body when certain people call or text. Notice whether you feel a lift of genuine joy or a drop of dread and obligation. Your nervous system knows the truth long before your mind is willing to accept it. Your body keeps the score. Learn to listen to it. When your stomach tightens at someone's name on your screen, that is not anxiety, that is wisdom. That is your whole self saying, this does not feel safe. This does not feel equal. This does not feel like something that feeds me. Here is another truth that will feel like a loss before it feels like a gift. Not everyone who needs you deserves you. These two things, needing and deserving, are not the same. Someone can need your attention constantly and still not value what you bring. Someone can rely on your presence completely and still make you feel invisible every single day. Need is not the same as love. Need is not the same as respect. And filling someone's need for you does not guarantee that they will ever fill your need for them. You are not a service. You are not a resource. You are not a backup plan or an emotional storage unit or a free therapist available around the clock. You are a human being with a finite amount of energy, a limited number of hours, and a deep, legitimate need to receive as much as you give. That is not selfishness, that is survival. That is sanity. That is the most fundamental requirement of a sustainable human life. Let's talk about the difference between belonging and fitting in, because this distinction will crack something open inside you if you sit with it long enough. Fitting in means you change yourself, your schedule, your opinions, your boundaries, your needs to match what a group or a person expects of you. Belonging means you bring your whole unedited, authentic self into a space, and that space receives you. Fitting in requires constant performance. Belonging requires only honesty. When you are too available to people who don't value you, you are fitting in. You are performing the role of the loyal, dependable, always there friend or partner or family member, hoping that if you perform it well enough, long enough, consistently enough, someone will finally look at you and say, I see you. I choose you, I value you. But here's the devastating reality. People who do not value you will not be converted by your availability. Your endless presence will not change their perception of your worth. Only your boundaries will. Only your limits will. Only the moment you stop being so easy to take for granted, that is the moment some people will finally see what they were always too comfortable to notice. And yes, some people will leave when you set boundaries. Some people will call you selfish. Some people will pull away, go cold, get angry, or act wounded. And this will hurt. I will not pretend it won't. It will hurt like something ending, because something is ending. The version of the relationship built on your unlimited sacrifice is ending. And sometimes that ending is not a tragedy. Sometimes that ending is the most important thing that could ever happen to you, because the relationships that survive your boundaries, the people who stay when you stop being infinitely available, who respect you when you say no, who love you more when you show them that you love yourself, those are your people. Those are the connections worth every moment of investment. Those are the relationships that will actually refill you instead of constantly depleting you. You deserve relationships that feel like rest, not like work. You deserve people who think of you without needing something from you. You deserve to be chosen, not just needed, not just used, not just tolerated, but genuinely, actively, consistently chosen. And you will never find those people while you are busy being infinitely available to the ones who don't value you. You have to create space. You have to be willing to let some connections go quiet so that the right ones can finally be heard. The world will not end when you become less available. Your phone will still ring. People will still reach out, but the quality of those connections will transform. When you stop pouring yourself into empty vessels, you will finally have something left to pour into the ones that hold something real. This is not about becoming cold. This is not about becoming hard or untouchable or distant. This is about becoming honest, honest about what you need, honest about what you can give, honest about which relationships are feeding you and which ones are slowly, quietly, politely eating you alive. The most generous thing you can do for yourself and for every person in your life is to show up as someone who values their own time, respects their own energy, and holds their own worth with both hands, because you cannot pour from an empty vessel. You cannot love well when you are depleted. You cannot show up for the people who actually deserve you when you have given everything to the people who never will. So stop. Just stop. Stop being available at the cost of your peace. Stop answering at the cost of your rest. Stop showing up for people who would not cross the street for you. not out of bitterness, not out of revenge, but out of the deepest, most profound form of self-respect, the kind that whispers quietly and firmly, I am worth more than this, and I am finally ready to live like it. Everything we have explored today comes down to one irreducible truth. You are not too much, and you are not too little. You have simply been spending yourself in the wrong places. The journey to stop being too available to people who don't value you is not a journey of becoming less loving. It is a journey of becoming more honest about who you are, what you deserve, and which connections are actually worthy of the extraordinary human being that you are. Boundaries are not walls. They are the architecture of a life lived with dignity. Shame is not the truth about you. It is a story that can be rewritten, one courageous choice at a time. And your worth, your unconditional, non-negotiable, inherent worth, does not require anyone's approval to be real. Start with one pause. Start with one honest no. Start with one moment of choosing yourself. That is where everything begins.